Welcome to the Global Wellness HQ family of podcasts. We are your international headquarters for resources and ideas and insight in relation to the 9 elements of holistic wellness. Join us as we interview local and international wellness experts and learn how you can implement and improve one element or dimension of wellness at a time. Our experts will share their practical tips on wellness in one of these core areas: emotional, intellectual, occupational, physical, environmental, financial, spiritual, social, or habitual. We created our family of podcasts as a resource for anyone who is looking to integrate the 9 elements of holistic wellness into their daily lives. Welcome to the show.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the show. I'm really excited. We have Timothy Morgan on the show. And for those listening, this is the first episode of the second season. So this is a big deal for me. And I hope Timothy, why don't you just tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Yeah, a little bit of my background. Thanks, Jeff, for having me, by the way. This is super fun. We've been talking, getting to know each other for a while, and now we get to go live and have some fun and share a little bit with the audience. So hopefully we can add some value. I was a nonprofit leader for years, ended up buying, selling, building some small businesses along the way as well. And about 10 years ago, I had to make a choice. What did I want to really focus in on and leverage superpowers with? And it happened to be the marketing space, but I wanted to be one of the good guys. I wanted to help the the churches, the community leaders, the businesses with a socially conscious focus, mission driven, purpose driven people, those kind of folks, and not leveraging all the fear and scammy and spammy approaches that many of the marketing professionals have. I wanted to do it right, and we're seeing a ton of results. So that's a little bit of my background and how everything started for the business world as well.
I love that. And that's the thing. A lot of my audience, we are the misfits and rebels. We don't fit into the traditional, this is what marketing is. And, please don't talk to me about how to build an email list and how to spam people. We're very much a relationship-based marketing community. So before we jump into what you do and how people can get to know you better, I just want to comment. I love the house rules behind you. And I'll let the audience read it themselves, but why is that there so present in your office?
Well, it's kind of an interesting story. We had a home in California, and there was one place in our living room that I just loved. It included just a little bit of everything in our family. It had our family picture, which you can see there in the upper corner, it had the house rules, had a little nod to some of the faith components of our life, a little bit of music back there in the background, the M for my last name, which is Morgan, our last name. And so I just thought it had a little bit of everything. So I said, you know what? I'm going to put that as my background for the foreseeable future. And it seems to be doing well. People ask a lot of questions. There's a lot of conversation points. Those are your kids, or those are your house rules. So super fun. And thanks for mentioning, Jeff.
And they're not really strict house rules. I like that, I mean, we all should be saying please and thank you and, things like that. So I just pointed out because I feel like it's a good starting point. Now, Timothy, I'm going to ask you my favorite question. What are you passionate about in life?
Yeah, at the end of the day, I'm a person of faith. So the idea that you can actually incorporate your faith into your business or into your life in a meaningful way is extremely, extremely interesting to me. And I've had some experience on the career side when it comes to religion and faith and these kind of things. And that's a big deal to me. I think you can incorporate that into marketing, into business, into all different aspects. And it allows you to have a real clean and clear focus if you do it right.
Well, and I think one of the things, I can't see how you would separate your beliefs from your business. I think, it's a natural, everybody's talking about how do we be authentic? And one of the things is if you have faith, why wouldn't you want to do business with other people who have faith? And one of the elements of our podcast is about spiritual wellness. And we're not here to tell people what to be or what to believe, but we are here to say, whatever it is that you believe, hang out with people who believe the same things. It's there's certain things that are better when they're shared.
Yeah, I'm also very passionate about community, and that dovetails right into that faith conversation. I think ultimately we are not designed to be alone. We don't. One of the things we talk about in our business is we're not meant to be lone rangers. There's a relationship dynamic that always comes into play for our communities, for our businesses, and many businesses like ours and yours have a community or an audience, some kind of connecting point. And who likes to do anything alone? Like, let's go, let's do it together. Let's get on a podcast together. Let's talk about something meaningful. Let's make an impact. Let's actually move the needle in a positive way. And it's way more fun together anyway.
Well, and that's, you use a lot of my favorite words. Community is definitely one of them. I think if you go way back to the days of early mankind, we've always been, around the fires. We've always been, that social being. And I think we make this mistake in the modern era of thinking we're alone or we need to be isolated, whereas we're naturally happier, maybe not in massive groups, but knowing you belong to a community, whether that, and I use the phrase affinity points, the more connection points we have with somebody. It's a very weird thing in my business, but I realized a couple of years ago, I don't want to do business with people who don't like their kids. My kids are my everything, and
Yep.
so that to me is one of my non-negotiables. Is if you tell me your kids are jerks or you complain about them, I have a pretty good sense of who you are as a person, and we don't need to have that conversation. So I think it's important to find those communities.
Those common points really is what creates the communities, and the communities is what makes the change in the world. And hopefully it's a positive change. And that's kind of what I'm on a mission to do in the marketing and business world.
I love it. Well, let's talk about your mission. So what exactly do you do and who do you do it for?
Yeah, we're on a mission to bring positive attention to causes and companies doing good in the world. I mean, that could be anything from uh, a business that's selling product that really believes in the impact that they're making from a health and wellness standpoint, or from an enjoyable moment for their family standpoint, or whatever the case may be. We get behind those stories and those narratives, and we feel that story is actually it's a big part of the unique selling proposition for a product or service. And so stories themselves, like the stories we were just sharing earlier about our background and why we do what we do, and the philosophies and all the narrative that kind of comes with that, that's what makes us different. That's our fingerprint for our respective businesses. I mean, and even when you reach the large business level, there's still a narrative. There's still an origin story from that business, and it continues on. So no matter what size you are, that's kind of our mission, is to bring positive attention to those type of organizations.
I love that. Now, I like to ask about business advice because it's a fun conversation, but what's the best business advice you've ever received and how has that impacted you?
I think some of the best business advice is to always be curious, because the moment you or I or anybody else listening feels like they've arrived or have all the answers, or feel like they're the only ones that are going to contribute to a conversation, that's when we start getting into humility issues. I'm allergic to arrogance in my own life and in others. It's just destructive. It's very difficult to kind of unwind or rewind when you get into that mode of narcissism or arrogance. And so curiosity and humility, I think, are some of the best traits. Um, yeah, whether that comes from a place of faith or philosophy or something else, like find it. That's what I'm trying to figure out, is how to do more of that. Be authentic, be curious, be humble. I like what Dave Ramsey also says. He says, work with people who are hungry and humble.
I like that.
Yeah.
So my favorite word in all of that, by the way, there's many wonderful words, but curious is my favorite. And that's what I love about being the podcaster. I get to be the curious person. I get to say, hey, Timothy, tell me about this. So let's switch gears a little and let's talk about you're literally creating a movement, and you call it the Giver Marketing Network. Let's go down that path a little and let's see what we unpack. But what is the Giver Marketing Network, and how is that changing the world for the better? Because I feel like you're going to do that whether that was your intention or not. I know it was, but I feel like just your statement that makes the world a better place.
Yeah, I love your term. We're a bunch of misfits trying to make a difference earlier, just kind of that. And that's why we're here together, probably, is because we're aligned in some of those ways. And we view ourselves as a group or a movement of marketing misfits who are really bringing our talents to the table, but we're not always doing it in the traditional ways. And so we're a little bit more on the creative side and have a lot of fun working together. But the origin story of a company or a brand is super interesting to share in many cases, because it's almost like I view brands like babies. They're like kids that start developing and growing, and sometimes they fall down and they get back up and realize, oh, I probably should do this instead of this, and this is what I'm good at, and this is what I'm not good at. And so to me, brands are like babies. And for the audience, whoever's listening, write that down, because it's really important kind of tip from a marketing perspective. Brands are like babies. And so the origin story, or the beginning story of our brand, was I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do in the marketing space that would really make the most impact. So I started serving and getting my reps in years and years and years ago. And these pastors and community leaders and business owners and organizational decision makers would come and ask for coaching. And all I knew was Tony Robbins was a life coach, or like a coach of sorts. And I started digging into the art and science of coaching. And at that point, I was like, I'm not sure if I want to go this direction, but I'm going to give it a shot. So I gave it a shot, started coaching, became the highest rated reviewed marketing coach in America, and found that there was a sweet spot there, that if I was curious, like we were talking about earlier, if I asked really good questions, pulled out the genius of that brand or that leadership team, then there was pulled out the story, pulled out kind of the pieces that we could put together that would complement what they were already doing in their marketing and really enhance what they were doing in a very special way. We could see 2x, 3x, 4x, 5x the results that they were seeing before, just by making some small changes. And a lot of these folks had a great mission, great product, great service, a lot of things, but they needed a little bit of help on the marketing. And so at that point, we began developing more like a team around what I was doing as a coach. And so I parlayed that attention that I was getting into more of a team dynamic. I said, hey, you got to check out our team. So I started handpicking marketing professionals that I'd been working with over the years anyway. We officially formed this little ragtag group of marketing misfits. That's exactly how we say it, Jeff. I'm telling you. And we started playing around with the idea of working together more. And it organically formed into a network of professionals who wanted to keep their own micro brands, but still be a part of something bigger than themselves. And so I brought that community leadership aspect in, matched it with marketing, kind of made sure it was kind of positive in nature. I worked on one political campaign. I don't know that I'll ever do that again. But a little anecdote, right? But at the end of the day, this little network was formed and born. And now we're the highest rated reviewed network of marketing professionals. We've kind of dovetailed that into our network and only handpicked certain people to be in it. And so it's super fun. I think we have 90 members last time I checked.
And that's I love that, the misfits and the reality is, if you listen to the noise, there's a lot of noise on the other side, where it's, you have to do this, you have to, pay lots of money to be on this platform or that platform. It's amazing what one can do and what you're doing with a good community. And that's, one of my personal passions is, I believe whatever your brand is, you should build a community around it, because if you're not passionate about it, why are you doing it in the first place? Whatever it is.
Yeah,
But
either build a community or have somebody help you do it, because it's doing things in a group or a tribe. There's just nothing like it. I mean, you can literally change the world.
yeah. And I once said that I'm naive enough to believe I can, and I'm stubborn enough that I will change the world. And I have a sense of that in you as well. One of my favorite people that I follow is Simon Sinek, and what I like about him is the power of why. And I'm getting a very strong sense of your why, and I think that's, I mean, if we're thinking about those do-good organizations, they don't need the PR moments or the photo shoots. It's, if you're naturally changing the world and doing good, the best way you can do that is to grow that community of fellow supporters. Is that fair?
Yeah, I think there's a difference between a community that is formed and structured as a movement and a community that is formed and structured like a typical maybe corporate dynamic, where there's kind of one voice that dominates the entire community. And to me, that's that second one is more common, but it's not as effective at best and dangerous at worst.
Tell me more.
I think we're moving into an era where more people know more about each other. They have easier ways to connect with each other, and they have more autonomy, as the author Pink would talk about. Daniel Pink, I believe it is.
Yeah.
Than ever in history. And so now we're coming to a place where we don't necessarily need to form our communities just for protection, just for more knowledge, just to meet a few folks. We can do a lot of that without a community, but if we actually want to be about a part of something much bigger than us, then finding an ever-growing movement of people who are actually inviting others into the mission or the direction it's so impactful that it becomes a whole different conversation than, hey, I follow this one gal or I follow this one guy and they happen to have a community. No. The community is the thing.
Yep.
The leader is not the thing. There is need for leadership in rooms, but generally more leaders the better. So that's the difference, in my humble opinion, when it comes to like different styles of groups. And so for those out there who are leading their micro groups or small groups or and starting to make some decisions, I challenge you to turn it into a movement. It's super fun. It's messy and it's interesting and it's not as controlled, but it could be more impactful if the culture is really good.
I love that. And for the audience here, the reason you and I are chatting was when I was introduced to you by not one, but two people that I trust. Both of them used the word movement and changing the world independently of each other. And I think that's a powerful thing. And I don't know if you've ever read any of Russell Brunson's work. I really love in his book Expert Secrets, he dissects movements from history. And, obviously there's good movements, there's bad movements, but it's that common. I love, I get kind of goosebumps when you talk about the broad leadership base where, it's a common goal, a common movement, and people want to make the world a better place. That's virtually unstoppable compared to, if you have a movement with a leader and that leader goes a different direction or gets sick or just one day decides I don't care about this anymore, the movement or the community dies with that lack of direction. So
Yeah, once a movement develops beyond a certain point, you literally can't stop it. It becomes its own self-fulfilling growth mechanism.
Yeah.
And so I appreciate that language from Russell and others, Pedro Adayo, a few others that are kind of in that online world of marketing and communication and business. And to some degree, some of the best companies have created at least some version of this within their kind of greater strategy. And it's healthy. I think it's good. I think people need to jump on in communities that they feel like you said earlier, they feel like they have these affinity points and these places where they can speak freely and talk about things they actually care about. And we're definitely not losing the ability to communicate. The thing that I think is starting to happen from a marketing standpoint and from a business standpoint and a community standpoint is communicate about things that are meaningful to us.
Mm-hmm.
And that is special. So we don't want to lose that. We want to keep that. We want to actually enhance that. And that is our why, is a world of causes and companies shaping culture for good. That's why we exist as a company, as a movement, as an organization. And we partner with others like yourself and others who are doing that on a small or a large scale. We're all valuable. We all need to work together. And that's one of the unique things about kind of certain communities. They're not always looking to idolize one particular phrase or a person or a style. It's actually very eclectic in how it's done.
Love that. And it's funny, I remember watching Tony Robbins had a documentary and it was called I'm Not Your Guru. And I was a little skeptical going in, but it was just he made that point that, stop looking to me to fix your life. You need to do it yourself. And by doing the work yourself, you're going to make the world around you better. And it was just an interesting. I went in with very little expectation, but I was kind of okay. What's Tony saying here? And it was just, I think a lot of people over delegate and they, all my life will be better if only Timothy would give me the path to enlightenment or something. And it's like, no, you have to look inside.
Well, the older we get, the less we know. So somebody like Tony or Simon or Dave, we've dropped a lot of names. Daniel today, Bob Berg, like other great names that have kind of come before us and are continuing to do some great work. They realize we hope to realize that we don't have all the answers in and of ourselves. So if a large group of people looks to one person for a lot of answers, like I said, hopefully you realize it as you go along and say, look, I'm not your guru. I'm a contributing factor to your success.
Yeah.
I'm an ingredient in the meal. I'm one of many voices that will encourage you, but you got to make the choice. You got to go. And
you got to make that dish, right?
Got to make the dish. And some people are more encouraging, instilling courage, encouraging than others. And I happen to love spending time with people like you, Jeff, who are asking good questions, curious, they're encouraging, they communicate. I define great marketing as pre-decision communication. So if you communicate well on the front end, build some trust, and then you get into a decision meeting or a conversation or a moment, then that decision becomes a little easier. Pre-decision communication, pre-sales communication, pre-funding communication. That's what marketing is. It just gets you primed and ready for a decision.
And I love when you're being authentic, because you don't have to remember what the party line is or what, the canned pitch is. It's just, this is what we believe. And I love that you added Bob Burke to the conversation, because I was just thinking his name was missing. I always throw in John David Mann because I feel a lot of people forget him as well.
Yep, the co-author. Yep.
But the other one I'm going to throw out is I'm a huge, huge fan of Dr. Robert Cialdini. And what I love, and I actually have had some communication with one of his team. The first book, Influence, when he first wrote it, he wrote it from the intention of a self-defense guide to people who are being manipulated by big marketing. And I just love that idea. And one of the weird things I do in my house is I have two boys, 10 and 14. I'm teaching them the influence self-defense.
Come on.
And it's amazing how quick my 10-year-old is picking it up. But they're looking at marketing messages going, they've got developing BS meters, and they're like, Dad, there's something wrong with that.
Yep, something wrong with this and that. I think we all could benefit from a great family or mentors or community that would help us understand what communication is nefarious and greedy versus what communication is influencing, like you said, influence, and helpful and encouraging, and just to discern and decide which one is which. Actually, technically, the word manipulation is a neutral term. So if we're getting our sources, if I'm being manipulated by a chiropractor, I'm thanking him or her.
And paying.
And paying them. But if I'm being manipulated by a greedy, crazy, narcissistic idiot or a company or a brand, I got a bad taste in my mouth. It's like, I'm not going to say what I'm thinking on the air right now, but
you can say it.
Something's going to come out of my mouth. I'm going to throw up based on what I just ate. Like, it's not going to be good for you. So knowing what you're ingesting will determine whether that was actually nefarious manipulation or helpful encouragement and influence. And that, to me, is the nuances of good marketing. One of our taglines is marketing for good. And that's the difference between like the Bob Burgs and the, Simon Sinek's and the Cialdinis and the others of the world that we're mentioning. They're master communicators of a message that's meaningful and valuable and helpful and healthy to the point of the podcast.
Yeah.
Whereas others are just trying to scrape the bottom of the barrel and grab some cash. Like, it just, look, if we can discern that one thing and be in communities that help us do that, everything else a lot of everything falls into place. Not everything, but a lot of everything else falls into place.
Yeah. And I love that you and I are having this dialogue, and somebody's going to be watching this and they're going to be like, wow, you guys talked a lot of, I find one of the fascinating things is the people who build communities out of curiosity, they tend to connect community to community. So it becomes even more, and honestly, my journey, I wanted to be a world-class a networker. And I went, well, that didn't feel like enough. And then I started connecting people and I realized that that's still finite. It's, I introduce you to one person, Esther introduces me to somebody, I introduce somebody to her. It's very limited. But once you build that movement and community, it's amazing. And, you can see, somebody described it as fireworks. Each light shines a little brighter because of being part of that whole. Um,
So good.
it's
So good. Fireworks? That's so good.
I immediately said I'm stealing that, but I always give credit where credit's due. I can't remember her name. It was Chara Rodriga, I think. I'm going to get her name wrong, but she shared that with me, and I just went, I get it, because I was trying to find a word for what I do. And, it's funny. I'm just going to tell you this between us, nobody else can listen here, but when I first started, I'm a recovering accountant and I went into the marketing world, but I was anti-marketing. And somebody looked at me one day and said, so you're relationship-based marketing? I was like, what? That's a thing? And it was like, I found my people, because I am very cynical of, the big ads, and, I cringe when people talk about, using this algorithm to create this content. And I'm like, does the algorithm care about your community? Does the algorithm care about your message? At best, you're going to get some, generic thing that anybody else could do the same content and publish it.
Yeah, those are just tools and mediums. And what I just came out of a great session with one of my coaches, and he said some things that just flipped my brain. I was just like, dang, that was good. And his whole premise was, if you have a pure heart to serve, and if you have the other person's best interest in mind, your relationships with tools, tactics, mediums, and approaches should be pretty good. How you use those, even your relationship with money or your relationship with other people, like that should all fall into a fairly good place if your philosophy of serving other people. I love using the term relationally and emotionally intelligent marketing.
Ooh,
To me,
nice.
that's like a book waiting to happen, Jeff. We should partner on that. But relationally,
Timothy, you don't know what door you just opened, my friend.
that's fun, right? So let's put out more content like this, more resources, more podcasts. Like, let's do more. Tell everybody about this podcast, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, you got to promote the good and minimize the bad. That's really what we're on a mission to do. We happen to do it through more of a movement model as opposed to a traditional model where there's, command and control. We're not really into command and control. We're into multiplying movements that you can't stop.
Yep.
They literally multiply. Like you don't remember, oh, did you join last year? Or like I want to meet you. Like, this is cool. Like, so
Yeah.
yeah. So I love the Russell Brunsons and the others who have kind of turned their business into kind of a different model, and that's super fun.
Well, and I'm very passionate. So again, this was unscripted, and Timothy does not know what he stepped into. One of my favorite things is every book I write, every book I ghostwrite, every book I help publish, we have a section called Focus on Charity. And so that's one of the things we love to do, is we like to highlight great charities. I'm working on one and it just felt really appropriate, but for a book about helping authors write books, we've actually found a charity that helps take the written traditional books and turn it into things for special needs kids, so they get more auditory and things like that. But I'm a huge fan of, finding, and I bake this into the books on purpose, because it kind of draws a line in the sand and says, if you don't support this particular cause, we don't need to hang out anymore. And it's fun because my people all have causes that they're rabidly fanatical, chasing and doing whatever they can. So this will be a
At
fun
least give back
conversation.
to something, like pay it forward somewhere, like be a conduit, not a dead sea. You know what I mean?
Well,
So
I love, and I'm going to credit Bob Berg, the human, with this, not necessarily the Go Gear book, but I've been very fortunate to have met Bob and have, he actually was on one of my early podcasts. What I love is it's all about adding value. And I think that's a good thing because a lot of people, it's about extracting value. How much can I get from Timothy? How much can I get from, my network? And I love just showing up to serve with abundance. And I'm going to credit Bob with having said this. I can't remember if he said it to me or if I read it in one of their books, but he said, you can't outgive the universe. And that is one of my favorite challenges because I love to play. So right now I'm doing a little book challenge where I'm trying to brainstorm and share ideas to add value to my network. And I'm encouraging my network to give me ideas on how I can add value to them. Um, I can't be sad, depressed, or lonely when I'm focused on gratitude and creating value. I'm not wired that way.
yeah, our brains aren't even wired close to that. So I love that you've brought up some of the neuroscience and some of the deeper pieces of our conversation. But yeah, that's what we're on a mission to do, is to help others get a little bit more intentional about their communication so that they can promote their cause, their book, their resource, their podcast, their brand, their product, their service, whatever it is that's actually enhancing our communities and our regions and our industries. Let's go. Let's partner up. Let's do that.
Love it. Well, I could talk to you all day, but I want to be mindful of your time. So I'm going to ask a couple of wrap-up questions. First, you are the expert at Timothy. Is there something I should have asked you that I haven't?
I think in this context, in this particular podcast, maybe some of the health, neuroscience, mindset type of aspects of our conversation could be wrapped in a bow at even now. I think when it comes to marketing, we really need to think of it as taking the shell or the basket off of our light and allowing more eyeballs and ears to see it. And sometimes the block is not the tools or the mediums like you were talking about before. It's the mindset. It's the healthy approach to communication that really takes us to that next level. And by the way, if it's not your thing to be a writer, you don't need to write a book every day. You don't need to write a book every week. Partner with somebody else who loves to do that. How many of these best-selling books actually have somebody else behind the scenes helping with the writing? All of them, pretty much all of them. So we don't do things alone, ladies and gentlemen. It's not okay. I do not give you permission to do things alone.
I love that. And I'm just going to throw out James Patterson. I've admired his creativity and his productivity for years. And I was like, I want to be like him. And then somebody by chance said, you do realize that James Patterson is an organization with a team. And I went, wait, what? That's a thing? And that was a big aha for me that, because my question was, how does this man pump out? Like, it seemed like he published a book a week for a while. And what I realized was it was his brand, it was his team. using his system.
Yep.
And so that's it's funny that you should say that. So you and I, we were meant to have this conversation, and I appreciate both Shamika and Esther for bringing this forward. My last question is, people want to get to know you, you're fun, they want to have some time with you. Where can they go to learn more, or just hear about the movement that you're creating, and just figure out how to play along with you?
We have a super fun explainer video that's right on our homepage. It's givermarketing.com. And it's actually fun to watch. It's super interesting, and just how it's put together. One of our team members put it together, and I recommend going to givermarketing.com, checking out, clicking around, seeing what you like there. You can book an appointment with me or one of the other team members there. You can also look me up on LinkedIn, Timothy Morgan on LinkedIn. I do check those messages personally, along with my assistant and some others, but I do get to see those more often than I would an email or something else. So thank you for having me, Jeff. And I am looking for marketing professionals with high character, competence, collaboration as a part of their DNA. People like you and I, Jeff, who love to work together, love to, we're not as worried about who gets the credit. We're worried about how it impacts the world. If you're one of those marketing professionals, communication professionals, I'm talking about everything from the creative side to kind of more the traditional side of marketing, okay? If you call yourself PR, social media manager, graphic designer, copywriter, the list goes on, radio host, like any of those modes of communication, any kind of communication, artistic or not, we want to have a conversation and just see if there's some alignment, because our goal is 1,000 marketing misfits running around changing the world, impacting 1 million organizations. We can't do this alone. We can't do it. Like, we need you to click around on givermarketing.com and set something up.
And I, for one, will attest, chatting with Timothy has been a blast. I adore every one of my podcast guests, but each one is also my favorite in some way. And this was a wonderful conversation about creating movements and making the world a better place. Timothy, I want to thank you for honoring me and my audience with your time today.
Thank you, Jeff. And I want to leave with one quick word study for your audience. Check out the word interoperability. It's a big word, I get it, but have some fun with it. I think we're in an era where podcasts and brands and companies are going to be working together more and sharing resources more, and actually tokenizing through blockchain and some other technologies in a way that's super interesting. Communities are going to start being interoperable, where you're literally going to be able to bounce around to different communities and groups and different things, and actually generate a more strategic, resource giving experience. And I'm excited. It'll be maybe another 5 years before we see a lot of this really hitting mainstream, but let's start it now, just like we're doing right here on this podcast.
I love it. Well, thank you for that, because I'm excited now. I've already got some ideas in my head over thinking about it, because again, you have no way of knowing this. I literally created my own currency for my community this week. And it was meant to be fun. It was like, I want to reward people for doing the things that matter. And, we've got a piece for philanthropy, but more importantly, it's a way for the community to come together and have some fun. And, the prizes are ridiculous. It's t-shirts and mugs, but, you can get a mug for $1 million, 1 million points. Sorry, we're not a real currency, but.
Hey, but these currencies, and I know we're teasing our next episode, but they all have to start somewhere, and they are valuable, especially to the community, and they can then become valuable to other communities.
Yeah.
And so that's where the special sauce is that third layer.
Yeah.
And it's now possible. So good on you for grabbing a token, because we're all going to have a branded token at some point for what we're working on. Even philanthropy is going to have
Yep.
I'm a part of a group called Giver. Um, it's called the Give Token. It's very interesting. It's very close to our
Oh.
name. So there's just a bunch of cool stuff happening that allows for more organizations and brands to work together without feeling all freaked out and scared that somebody's going to take my, you know, $1 or $2 dollars of wallet. And it's like, well, what if you get 400 back? Like, I don't
Yeah.
understand what you're doing. Like fear-based decision making is not generally healthy unless you're crossing the street or something. Like, other than that, like, just use caution, but don't be walking fear, man. Like, come on, let's go. So
Big
anyway, yeah,
words from Timothy.
thank you, Jeff. Appreciate you having me. This has been fun.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you for taking the time to listen to our show. We hope that you enjoyed this episode, and we invite you to either click the link below or scan the QR code to register and listen to other episodes of our podcast. Or if you think your business or you would be a great guest to be on our show, we're always looking for experts in one of the 9 elements of holistic wellness. We'd love to have you. You can either click the link below or you can scan the QR code and complete our speaker intake form. Thank you, and to your wellness.